We have a 12-year-old kid attacking a super GM who just finished the World Blitz Championship. The result is absolute chaos. Welcome back, everyone. Today we have a fascinating scenario. Vincent Keymer, the number 4 player in the world, literally just finished playing the World Blitz Championship and immediately hopped online for Titled Tuesday. He is tired, he is playing on adrenaline, and he is paired against a 12-year-old fearless attacker from Vietnam. Let's see if the youngster can catch the Super GM sleeping. White starts with pawn to e4, controlling the center. Keymer responds with pawn to c6, the Caro-Kann defense. It is usually a super solid, sturdy opening, but I have a feeling things are about to get spicy, especially knowing how Keymer plays these positions. White takes full control of the center with pawn to d4. Black strikes back immediately with pawn to d5. This is the main battleground. White develops the knight to c3, defending the pawn. Black captures on e4, temporarily relieving the tension. White recaptures with the knight. Keymer develops his knight to f6, challenging that centralized piece immediately. White retreats the knight to g3. This is a very standard way to play, keeping pieces on the board to fight for a win. Pawn to h5, and here we go. Keymer signals his intentions immediately. He wants to push this pawn down the board to cramp White's position. White develops the bishop to c4. Sensible development. Pawn to h4. The spike is advancing. Black is already creating long-term weaknesses in White's camp. Knight to e2. This looks a little passive to me. The idea is to transfer the knight to f4 later. Pawn to e5. Keymer thinks for 10 seconds and decides to blow open the center. The engine calls this a blunder because it gives up material, but practically speaking, this is terrifying for White. At this point, I think it would have been better to push the pawn to h3 to complicate matters. We are definitely leaving the theory books and entering a sharp middle game. Bishop to g5. White ignores the pawn and pins the knight. I don't love this. Just take the free pawn. This feels like White is trying to be too fancy against a super GM. The engine recommendation was to develop the knight to f3 instead. Keymer pushes pawn to e4. Now the center is closed, the position is messy, and White has lost their chance for an easy advantage. The computer preferred developing the knight to d7 here, but Keymer wants to cramp the position. Queen to d2. White is preparing to castle queenside, bishop to e7. Keymer unpins his knight and gets ready to castle. White castles long. Okay, buckle up. We have opposite side castling scenarios brewing. This means both players are going to throw pawns at each other's kings. However, the engine considers this a mistake and suggests it would have been better to retreat the bishop to b3 first. Pawn to b5. Black wastes 0 time. He is coming for the white king. The bishop retreats to b3. Pawn to a5. Look at this pawn storm. Keymer is threatening to trap the bishop completely. White plays pawn to a4 to give the bishop some breathing room. Black develops the knight to d7. Knight to h3. White is looking at that f4 square, but this knight on the rim looks a bit sad for now. It would have been better to move the knight to c3 to control the center. Knight to b6. Black is eyeing up the squares around the white king. White captures on b5. Opening up lines in front of your own king is always a risky business. The engine still prefers to move the knight to c3. Pawn to a4. Keymer ignores the recapture. This is an intermezzo, or in-between move. He forces the bishop to move before dealing with the pawn structure. The bishop is forced back to a 2, pawn to a 3. That pawn is a thorn in White's side. It's like a bone in the throat that you just can't swallow. White pushes b3 to keep the position closed. Black finally recaptures on b5. The queen side is looking very drafty for the white king. Queen to f4. White is trying to generate some counterplay on the other side of the board. The engine suggests it would have been better to move the knight to f4. Knight to d5. Keymer centralizes the knight. Notice how all his pieces are flowing toward the center and queen side. Queen to e5. White is trying to be annoying, infiltrating the position. King to f8. Wow. Keymer decides that castling is for cowards. He just steps aside. The computer hates this, preferring to castle kingside, but psychologically it tells the opponent, come and get me. Bishop takes on f6, a mistake in the engine's eyes. It wanted to play the knight to f4. Bishop captures back. Black's king is actually surprisingly safe here. Queen takes pawn on e4. White grabs a pawn, but this opens up the e-file for Black's rook. Rook to a7, a beautiful rook lift. The rook is ready to swing across to defend or attack. The engine is a bit critical though, preferring to capture on h3 with the bishop. Knight to f4. White is piling up pressure. Knight to b4. Keymer ignores the threats and attacks the bishop and the c2 pawn. King to b1. Safety first. Rook to e7. Keymer attacks the queen. Simple chess. The queen runs to the corner at a8. Knight takes c2, a sacrifice? Or is it? This is getting extremely messy and both players are under 5 minutes on the clock. The engine actually preferred pawn to g5 here. Rook to c1. White tries to pin the knight to the king. Oh wait, there is no king there. Rook to c7. Black calmly defends. Knight to d5. White's pieces are active, but they aren't coordinating well. Knight takes d4. Keymer is just gobbling pawns now. The evaluation drops as the engine preferred bishop to f5. Queen takes a 3 check. White grabs a pawn back with tempo. The king has to move. King to g8, safe as a house. Knight takes d4. White trades the knight. At this point, I think it would have been better to move the knight to f6. Bishop takes d4. That bishop is a monster, slicing through the entire board. Rook takes c7. White removes the defender. Bishop to f5 check. An important intermediate move. Before recapturing, Keymer forces the king to move. King to c1 is forced. Queen takes d5. Black finally recaptures. White is up material, but look at White's king. It's naked. We are essentially in a mating net phase now. Rook to e1. Oh no. White has about 90 seconds left and blunders. This allows Black to infiltrate. It was critical to retreat the bishop to b1 to hold on. Rook to h6. Keymer actually misses the fastest win here, but he brings the last piece into the attack. The engine found a quicker kill with king to h7. Pawn to b4. White thinks for 37 seconds, almost half his remaining time, and plays a move that loses instantly. This is classic analysis paralysis. He needed to find rook to e8. Rook to c6 check, the hunt begins. King to d1, running for his life. Bishop to c2 check. The bishops are coordinating perfectly. King to d2. Queen to g5 check. Keymer is relentless. Every move is a punch. King to e2. The king is being walked into the center of the board. Rook takes c7, cleaning up the board. Queen to a8 check. A desperate check from White. King to h7. The king is perfectly safe. King to f1. White is trying to hide, but there are no hiding spots left. The only try was rook to d1. Bishop to d3 check. It's over. King to g1. Bishop takes f2 check, stripping away the last pawn cover. The engine wanted rook to c1 for a faster mate, but this is sufficient. King takes f2. Forced. Queen to d2 check. A fork picking up the rook. King to f3. Queen takes the rook on e1. And White resigns. An absolutely brutal finish. What a game. You have to give credit to the 12-year-old for putting up a huge fight, but in the end, Keymer's experience and that deadly bishop pair were too much. It's also a great lesson on time management. Don't spend 40 seconds on one move when your king is being hunted. Keymer went on to win this titled Tuesday with a massive score. Let me know in the comments if you think you could survive 20 moves against Keymer.